Welcome everybody to the fourth and final week of One Deck 1 Month with Earth Machines. Alright, so hopefully those batteries will be done charging by the time I leave, but first let's crack into some mail. This package in particular does contain something very important, if I could get it open. Here we go. Very, very important. Okay, well this is a pleasant surprise. I actually thought this was going to be something else that I ordered, but I'm still just as happy to see that this has showed up in the mail today. The Alti Gaia charger. I actually thought this was the Pot of Prosperities that I ordered the other day, but this I'll take because we actually get to play this in our deck today. Look how gorgeous it looks. Also, look at the sleeve that it's in too. That's a fine looking sleeve, I must say. And in the other envelope here, this is something I bought from somebody in my Discord, and it is another ultimate rare, believe it or not, and it is a Montage Dragon. It's not like in perfect condition, but it still is in pretty nice condition. This is going to go in my binder, my collection binder. And the reason why I got this card was because like it's just very nostalgic for me. When I started playing Yu-Gi-Oh again in like 6th grade, I ended up buying like a bunch of random like dragon cards off of Amazon, and this is like the one that I ended up getting. I didn't get it in this rarity, but it's really cool to see that it's in ultimate rare. And now that I actually have it, so very, very cool to have, and thank you to Phantoms for selling me this. Thank you. Man, they really don't make Altis like they used to, man. Look at all that foiling on there. It looks so good. Alright, so I just wanted to take this time to update you guys on what has happened over the last week. It is also currently just about 3 o'clock here on Saturday. And yeah, really haven't made any changes at all to this deck. In fact, I haven't made any changes. The list is still the exact same list that we played in the previous episode, which, by the way, if you guys haven't checked out, you can go ahead and check it out by clicking on that link up there in the top right. And also, thank you guys for all the support on that last episode, too. The video is doing extremely well. It's got about 3,000 views and almost 200 likes in just a few short days, so thank you guys again for all the support and all the amazing feedback in the comments as well. And speaking of comments, there was one really interesting comment that I saw that was regarding a possible change that I could make to this deck list, and that was to cut Machina Metal Cruncher down to 2 in place of a second Derricrane, which to me kind of makes the most sense because there really are no other cards that I can think of that I would really feel okay with cutting for a second copy of Derricrane, because I still would like to really just fit that second copy in there somewhere, because Derricrane is incredible for helping to establish number 81 and also to help close out games much quicker via that rank 10 engine, which sometimes we don't get to take advantage of all that often. So that is a possible change that I might make. And another thing that happened over the week too was we ended up hitting 20,000 subscribers. So yeah, I figured I had to mention that in this video. So thank you guys for getting us to this incredible milestone. I literally cannot believe it. I'm still at a loss for words, to be totally honest. And of course, with hitting a huge milestone like that comes a huge giveaway. We did a big giveaway for 10,000, and I wanted to follow that up with another big giveaway at 20,000. And what am I going to be giving away? That's a good question. I'm glad you asked. The first thing is going to be 3 of these custom 3D printed field centers with the OG logo. Someone in my Discord actually sent these to me last year. They made them completely free and sent them over and said I could basically do whatever I want with them. I could paint them, give them away, do whatever. And I told them I'd give them away at 20,000. And now that we're finally here, I'm going to be giving away 3 of these bad boys. You can do whatever you want with them. You can paint them. You can leave them as is. You can frame them on your wall. I'll probably sign and number the backs as well. So yeah, really excited to be giving these away. Huge shout outs to the man who sent it to me. I'll put his name up here on the screen. We're going to be giving away a ton of playmats as well from Imperium Duelist, a lot that I haven't used in quite some time. Some really great playmats. We'll be giving away a ton of those. Some sealed product, some signed cards, you name it. I'll be doing a ton of giveaways over on my Twitch, link below, and here on YouTube as well. So be on the lookout for an update video regarding how to enter and when the giveaways will begin, because it'll be happening very, very soon. And yeah, that's all I really wanted to say right now. I'm going to go ahead and get a quick workout in, and then we'll pack everything up, get some food, and we'll be on our way. Looks like only one battery left to charge before we leave. Hopefully it's done before we leave, because I'm going to need all the batteries that I can get, because I got to record a lot of footage. So let's just grab our mat bag and deck box. We'll throw that in the bag later. I was actually going to bring my binders today, but I don't think I am, because there's nothing I'm really going to need in there, and none of my friends need to borrow anything. So I think I'm just going to leave them here, because the less weight I have to carry, the better. Because this bag, when it's fully loaded with all the gear in it, is just so heavy. So if I can just keep it as light as possible, that's going to be really good. Let's go ahead and grab our tripod and literally a bag of weights that I use as a counterbalance for the tripod. Oh, this is what weighs the most. Ugh, so heavy. Grab the other camera bag for the main camera. Let's bring this in here. And I just gotta grab this camera and the charge cable, and then that should be pretty much everything I need to take. Alright, we are here at Locals. It is just a little after 6 o'clock, and we're going to be going inside to get all set up soon. And it's our last week with Earth Machines, so I'm definitely going to miss doing this series with this deck. Of course, we'll probably revisit it down the road like we will with other decks. But I'm gonna miss it, definitely. I'm still going to be playing Earth Machines. Don't think that after this series is over, I'm going to stop playing Earth Machines, because that's just not true. I love that deck too much to stop playing it right now, so... Here goes nothing. Hopefully we can get ourselves a 4-0 on the 4th week. Okay, so here we are in round 1, and we actually ended up playing against Cyber Dragon. Now, unfortunately, I do lose die roll here, but it's not that bad because my opponent actually lets me go first. Now, my hand was looking borderline unplayable right up until the last card that I drew, which happened to be Machina Metal Cruncher, which was basically my saving grace here. I also opened Machina Fortress here, but I, for some reason, missed the opportunity to go for the rank 9 combo because I revealed 3 Dozer off of this Cruncher instead of 3 Harvester. Now, luckily, my Dozer ends up resolving, and we do our full combo, so we'll just go ahead and speed up through this. So everything was going pretty smooth right up until I tried to resolve Tunneler. I showed my opponent all my targets, and he actually had a Gamma for it, to my surprise. Which hurt a little bit, but not so much, to be totally honest, because I did still end up setting 3. I set a Solemn Strike, I believe a Torrential Tribute, and the other card I had set, I believe, was a Twin Twister. So despite the Tunneler not being able to resolve, still felt like I was going into this game, in a pretty good spot. So in the end phase, I remember to add back Dozer off of Bullet, and I hand it over to my opponent where he starts by normal summoning Cyber Dragon Core to add a copy of Cybernetic Overflow. He then contact fuses my double-headed Anger Knuckle and Machina Fortress for Chimera Tech Fortress Dragon. He then plays Cyber Rev System to bring back Core, links those into Predaplant, Verte Anaconda, activates its effects, pays costs. I do have to hit that with a Solemn Strike because at this point I do not want to see Dragoon here. And then from there he sets one and ends his turn. I start by activating Twin Twister. I have the Dozer in hand as well as the card I drew for turn. It's a pretty tough decision for me to make at this point, but I do discard the Dozer. And then he activates Overflow in response to hit my last set, which was a Torrential Tribute. He then gets to add a copy of Cyber Emergency, which I honestly wasn't aware that Overflow got to search when it was destroyed, but I basically just hand him a copy of Cyber Emergency. I then ditch the last card in my hand to bring back Anger Knuckle to swing for 15, and I unfortunately have to pass there, where he starts on his turn with Red Eyes Fusion of all things. I chain Knuckle to the activation to bring back Bullet and just hope for the best at this point. He activates Dragoon to destroy my Bullet. I take 3,000. He then swings in for another 3,000, and then activates Cyber Emergency in main phase 2 to add Cyber Dragon Core. Then in the end phase, I attempt to activate Bullet's effect to add back, which he does negate with the Dragoon. I draw for turn and have to scoop right there because I can't do anything to out this Dragoon, especially being at just 2,000 life points. And yeah, I feel like I might have made a pretty big error regarding what I discarded for Twin Twister, but to be totally honest, at that particular point, I don't think I had an option either way, and it probably cost me the game. So we're going to head into game 2. So in game 2, I ended up siding in non-fusion areas as well as Anti-Spell Fragrance and Imperial Order. I get started with Machina Metal Cruncher and use his effect to add Dozer. Then I activate Dozer to summon out Drill, only because I had already opened a Trencher. I then use Trencher to tribute the Drill, then go into River Stormer, and then from there we'll just go ahead and speed up through the entire combo. My Tunneler ends up drawing me another copy of non-fusion area apart from the one I had already opened, and a copy of Harvester. From there I end up setting non-fusion area Solemn Strike, Torrential Tribute, and add back off of Bullet, then hand it over to my opponent. Now in the standby phase, I activate non-fusion area because I just do not want him to be able to go into Dragoon or for him to be able to do any contact fusing. And then from there, he activates a copy of Cyber Emergency to search Cyber Dragon Core. My opponent then summons Cyber Dragon and then proceeds to normal summon Core to add a copy of Overflow. He then links into Cyber Dragon Seeger with the Cyber Dragon he had on his field. Then he attempts to go into the battle phase where I chain Knuckle still in main phase to bring back Bullet. He still proceeds into the battle phase to kill my Bullet, which helps me secure the end phase add if I wanted to use it, because I actually don't end up using it, and I don't think I really needed to be totally honest, but I probably still should have regardless. Either way, I start my turn, and he activates Artifact Lancea in the standby phase, which I had to choose whether or not I wanted to strike that, but I go ahead and do it anyways. That way I can probably just put game on board this turn. I start by summoning Harvester, search a copy of Trencher, then link into Goliath, use Stormer to send the Goliath, and then Goliath reattaches itself. And on resolution of Goliath effect, my opponent thought it would be a good idea to activate Overflow. He attempted to destroy my non-fusion area and River Stormer, but my opponent didn't realize until after the fact that my River Stormer couldn't be destroyed by card effects. Obviously an honest mistake on his behalf, but I certainly wasn't complaining because I was able to resolve River Stormer's effect to add a copy of Fortress. I then pitch the Drill and Trencher for Fortress. Trencher brings back Drill. Drill summons Ancient Gearbox from my hand, and then I use Drill and Box to make Dingirsu. Dingirsu sends his Cyber Dragon Seeger. I slap a Gaia Dragon on top of my River Stormer and send the Torrential Tribute on my field to the grave to bring back Anger Knuckle, and then I swing in for 26, 26, 25, and 1,500 for a game, and we head into game 3. So now we are in a game 3 situation where I have an opening hand of Heavy Forward, Urgent Schedule, Brutal Dozer, Harvester, and I think the last card was Ash, but I could be wrong. Either way, I start by activating Heavy Forward to add Trencher, and my opponent does have a Droll and Lockbird on the resolution, which kind of hurt quite a bit, but luckily for me, I still had a copy of Dozer in hand, so I normal summon the Harvester without effect, use Dozer summons out Drill, I then tribute the Drill for a Trencher, go into River Stormer, activate its effect to send a copy of Citadel to the grave. I then link the River Stormer into Goliath, send Goliath for Stormer, Goliath reattaches itself. I then use Heavy Forward to turn the River Stormer to attack, and from there I go ahead and set my Urgent Schedule and end my turn. My opponent starts by summoning Cyber Dragon, then Contact fuses into Chimera Tech Fortress Dragon. He normal summons Cyber Dragon Herds, tries to activate Machine Duplication. I do have the Ash for that, luckily, and then he does link into Anaconda, activates its effects, and unfortunately I don't have a way to stop it. He sends Red Eyes Fusion and the appropriate materials. He then summons Dragoon to swing in for 3,500, and then he ends his turn there, where I start by activating Trencher to revive Harvester. Harvest effect goes through to add a copy of Trencher. I then link the Harvester into Goliath. I send the Goliath for Stormer. Goliath reattaches. I also use Heavy Forward here to activate River Stormer as well. So when I use this effect, I can still keep the Goliath underneath it for added protection. And then River Stormer adds me a copy of Bullet. I then attempt to activate Urgent Schedule here, and my opponent negates that with Dragoon. Now, since the activation was negated, I'm no longer under the restrictions of Urgent Schedule, which I thought I was, which was kind of throwing me off a little bit because I thought I wasn't going to be able to go into Gaia Dragon, which would have been important to be able to attack over his Anaconda to get access to Zeus, but I realized that I could still attack since the Urgent Schedule's activation was negated. So I go into Gaia, and then I summon Bullet before I make Gaia. And then Gaia attacks over the Anaconda for 2,100. And then main phase 2, I make Zeus and activate its effect to clear the Dragoon and also secure the end phase, add back off of Bullet. My opponent draws for a turn and passes. Then on my turn, he has a Lancia in the standby phase. I then quickly switch Zeus to attack and summon Machina Fortress and proceed to close out the game while still having a Torrential Tribute set. So we take a nice 2-1 win here and move on to round 2. So in round 2, we ended up playing against Tenyi, and my opening hand was double Solemn Strike, Ancient Gearbox, Ash Blossom, and a copy of Heavy Forward. So at this point, I knew I was going to need to perform the Ancient Gearbox combo, which I luckily did correctly this time, because I remembered to link my Harvester into Goliath before resolving my Dozer, which led to our full uninterrupted combo. So my Tunneler ends up drawing me into a copy of Overdrive and Ash. From there, we resolve Ancient Gear Ballista to add Box and Trencher. We end up linking into Knuckle, setting our back row, and ending our turn. My opponent starts by summoning the level 7 Tenyi Ashuna, and then links that into the Monk of the Tenyi, follows that up by special summoning Adara. He then tries to use Ashuna's effect Engrave, which I do decide to Ash. He then follows that up with Desires, links into the link to Shaman of the Tenyi, and I do hit that with a Solemn Strike, which proved to be pretty good, because all he does after that is just passes. And in the end phase, I use the Overdrive to try to gain more advantage, and he realizes basically what's going to happen from there, and he just scoops to save time. So then we're off to game 2. So admittedly, game 2 went pretty quick. My opponent does go first and starts with the Wind Tenyi, links that for the Monk, then activates Vessel for the Dragon Soul, which I do Ash, because let's be honest, that card is actually pretty good for the deck. And of course, it does end up, to be a devastating hit, because after that, he just sets one card and passes. I start with Twin Twister pitching an Urgent Schedule, which hits his set Solemn Strike. I follow that up by playing another copy of Urgent I had in hand, and he just can see the writing on the wall at this point. He scoops, and that ends up being the match. So we take a nice and quick 2-0 win against Tenyi, and we move on to round 3. Alright, we just finished round 2. Round 1 we played against Cyber Dragon. As you saw, non-fusion area came in very, very clutch. The only thing that happened that was really unfortunate is that I missed a really good combo in game 1, but we ultimately still got it in game 3. And then our last game we just played, it's very unfortunate 2-0, but it is still a win nonetheless. So hopefully we can take that momentum into rounds 3 and 4. So here we are in round 3, and I actually ended up playing against a good friend of mine, Adam, and lo and behold, we were actually playing the mirror match as well. Also, if you can believe it, we actually both opened Ancient Gearbox in our opening hand here, which is actually kind of funny. Either way, my opponent starts with Machine of Metal Cruncher and then resolves Dozer to summon Tunneler, and then pretty much proceeds to do the entire combo uninterrupted. His end board consists of number 81, Anger Knuckle, and 1 set card. Now, I believe my opening hand was Solemn Strike, Torrential Tribute, Overdrive, Redeployment, and Ancient Gearbox, and my 6th card was a copy of Heavy Forward. So I start off with a Heavy Forward to grab Harvester, normal summon Harvester to add a copy of Dozer. I then link off the Harvester into Goliath and activate the effect of Dozer to summon out Tunneler. Then I go into River Stormer, activating its effects, and my opponent actually has a Forbidden Droplet on the activation of my River Stormer. So from here, I'm forced to link my River Stormer into a Goliath, send the Goliath to the grave to bring back Stormer, have Goliath reattach, and then I actually decide to attach the Heavy Forward that I have to it as material as well. I then activate Redeployment, discarding the box that I had to go ahead and add Fortress and Citadel. I then summon Fortress by discarding Citadel, and here I go into the battle phase where I try to force out his defense position Fortress. I use my Fortress to attack into his to trigger its mandatory effect, hoping that he would destroy my Fortress. That way I could rip a card out of his hand and also to be able to trigger my own Citadel and Grave, but he doesn't take the bait, and he ends up attempting to destroy my River Stormer, which at that point could not be destroyed by card effect. So I then link the River Stormer into Goliath, and I link the Goliath and the Fortress for Ballista. Ballista adds the box, and box adds the Trencher. After that, I set my 4th and final back row and hand it over to my opponent, where he leads with a copy of Heavy Forward, add Harvester. He then normal summons Drill, activating its effect to bring out Ancient Gearbox, and then activates Drill's other effect to target box for level 8. From here, I decided it would be a good idea to activate Overdrive at this point. I was really trying to bait out his number 81 because I know I have a Solemn Strike set. But now as I'm watching this back, I didn't technically need to strike the number 81, but I guess it's good that I did so, because if I didn't strike it, then I would not have gotten Citadel out onto the field. So just a bit of an interesting interaction there, because for those that don't know, you can still actually use Overdrive on cards that are unaffected by card effects. It still has the Daracrane effect to resolve here, unfortunately. But I still get Cruncher, I still get Citadel on board, and he does end up using the Daracrane, attempting to pop my Citadel. Of course, I chain the Citadel, clearing the rest of his field. From here, the only play he has left is to bring back Knuckle, which he does. He then attacks over my Cruncher, gets an end phase add back off a bullet, and passes it over to me, where I start with Harvester, chain blocking its effect with a Daracrane, and as soon as he sees the Daracrane, he can pretty much assume what's going to happen this turn, and he scoops it up, and we head into game 2. So in game 2 here, my opponent decides to go first, and my opening hand here, I believe, was Solemn Strike, Torrential Tribute, Trencher, Bullet Train, and Anchor Drill. My opponent leads with a copy of Redeployment, pitching Citadel, to add a copy of Overdrive and Cruncher. He then activates Cruncher to reveal Fortress, and a copy of Bullet. He then activates Dozer to summon out Trencher, and then proceeds to do full combo. So my opponent's final end board was Anger Knuckle with 2-set back row, and I top deck an Ash for turn. So unfortunately, having no starters in my opening hand, I am forced to lead with Anchor Drill to bring out Trencher, and then I attempt the effect of Drill on Trencher, which does successfully resolve. I then summon Earth Slicer, attempt to activate its effects, targeting both his back row. He tries to activate Overdrive in response, and I do have the Ash for that, so I end up clearing both his Overdrive and a set Imperial Order. I then follow that up by linking the Earth Slicer into Goliath, and then special summon Bullet Train to link into Ballista. Ballista resolves to adding Box and Tunneler. I then tribute the Ballista for Tunneler, and then link the Tunneler into Goliath. I then activate Trencher Engrave to bring back Drill. I then link the Drill and the last Goliath into a copy of Knuckle, then resolve Tunneler to draw into, I believe, what was a Solemn Strike and one other card. It might have been a Cruncher. I then set the Strike and Torrential and pass it over to my opponent, who before I leave the main phase uses Knuckle to bring out Bullet, and I also add back Drill in the end phase off of my own Bullet. My opponent then starts with Harvester, activates the effect of Search. I let that go through, which at this point I'm still not really sure if that was a good idea or not. I understand the Earth Machine deck quite a bit, but I'm still very unfamiliar on how the mirror match works. Either way, Harvester adds Drill. He then attempts to use the effect of Harvester to target Bullet Train to attempt to become level 12. And once I realize this, and he can activate Zeus, I get a little scared here, so I kind of panic and activate Knuckles' effect, discarding Box to revive Bullet, and then I activate Torrential on the summon of Bullet. Now, hindsight is 20/20 here. I should have let him go into the Zeus and just activated Strike on the summon, leaving him with pretty much nothing on board from there. He could have just brought back maybe a Knuckle, but I would have just had a Torrential tribute for it. But either way, I guess it really doesn't matter at this point. He then gets back out his Citadel as a result of my Torrential. He then uses Overdrive Engrave to recycle 3 and draw 1. From there, he activates a redeployment to add Fortress and another Overdrive. He then summons 2 more Fortresses and attacks me for a game with just Citadel and double Fortress, all because of a crucial error. I know going into this that Solemn Strike was a very strong card against the Earth Machine deck, and for some reason, I just didn't use it to my advantage here, which is really unfortunate. And I really do regret making the plays that I made here, because I definitely could have made far better plays. But either way, let's head into Game 3. So in Game 3, you could definitely say my opening hand was pretty cracked. I opened Overdrive, Dozer, Redeployment, Torrential Tribute, and a copy of Heavy Freight Train Derricrane. I lead with a copy of Redeployment, pitching my Overdrive, and it does resolve here, luckily, for me to add a copy of Cruncher and Fortress. I go for the standard rank 9 combo, and everything to my surprise resolves, so we'll just go ahead and speed up through this. So over the course of my combo, I actually ended up ripping a Heavy Forward out of his hand with my Enter Blathnir, and my Tunneler drew me into another Torrential and a copy of Dozer. Was really hoping to maybe find some side deck cards here, or a Solemn Strike. But regardless, I still end on Phantom Fortress and number 81 with a Knuckle and 2-set Torrential, so I was definitely feeling pretty confident here to possibly win this game. But my opponent did open a really busted 2-card combo, and that is Fortress plus Citadel. He pitches the Citadel to summon Fortress. On the summon, I chain Knuckle to bring back Bullet. He then crashes his Fortress into my Enter Blathnir. He then uses the effect of Fortress as Chainlink 1 and Citadel Chainlink 2. Citadel comes out and runs over my Enter Blathnir for 100 damage. Then he proceeds to main phase 2, where I was in a bit of a sticky situation. I was unsure as to whether I wanted to, use number 81 to maybe bait out his Citadel and possibly lose my board in the process, or to let him to continue to combo and then use my number 81 later. But either way, he tributes his Citadel for Dozer and then summons out a Trencher. And on summon, I activate Torrential Tribute, and in response, I chain my number 81, targeting itself. My opponent does have a really clutch Forbidden Droplet here. He then uses the Trencher Engrave to bring back the Dozer, and then links that into Goliath and sets one mysterious card and passes it back to me. It's still crazy to me that he actually ended up breaking that entire board off of just Citadel and Fortress. I guess it just goes to show how crazy of a 2-card combo it really was. I honestly thought I had game on board, and that as soon as I passed over to him, that the game would be over just like that. I think looking back, I definitely overextended here because I'm definitely learning that less is definitely more in the mirror match. Either way, in the end phase, I add back a Harvester, and I draw Cruncher for turn, and I start by normal summoning the Cruncher to reveal Fortress, Drill, and Trencher, and then I'm discarding Box, Harvester, and Trencher for Fortress in my grave because I wanted to be able to set up a Trencher play with Harvester in the grave, but I had to discard the Box to be able to do so. This whole time, I was very worried about playing around Citadel because I was very vulnerable to it at this point. I then activate Trencher to bring back the Harvester and activate its effects to search Drill. And on the resolution of my Harvester, my opponent, unfortunately, has a Overdrive, which is huge. He targets his Goliath to bring out a Cruncher, and then goes Chain Link 1 Citadel, Chain Link 2 Cruncher. His Cruncher reveals a Harvester at 3 copies. And then he brings out the Citadel, and then uses Citadel immediately on his Cruncher to wipe the board. Now, at this point, I just have a Drill and a Dozer in hand, so I pitch the Drill to bring back Knuckle. And I was debating here as to whether or not I wanted to actually use the Dozer in hand, because if I got rid of my Knuckle, I wouldn't have the opportunity to bring back Bullet on my opponent's turn. And I was also unsure as to whether or not I wanted to lock myself into Earth Machines at this point, because that really didn't sound too good. And whatever target I summoned off of it, I couldn't be able to exceed with anyways because I did not have any rank 5s left in the extra deck. This is actually the one time where I maybe wished I had a second copy of Riverstormer. But I finally decide either way to resolve the Dozer, to summon out a Tunneler that I still had in deck. I actually forgot about it somehow. I then link my Tunneler and Dozer into 2 copies of Goliath, and then link both of those into Knuckle. And then I go ahead and resolve Tunneler, hoping I draw into some good traps here, but I draw into Fortress and Anti-Spell Fragrance, and I have to pass there. Luckily for me, my opponent top decks a Heavy Forward, which was shut off by my standby phase Anti-Spell Fragrance. But then my opponent normal summons Harvester to add Dozer, and he activates Dozer, tributing the Harvester, and he was unsure as to whether or not he wanted to use his Dozer here, but he quickly remembers that he has not resolved Riverstormer yet, so he brings out the Trencher and goes for the Riverstormer play. He searches Bullet, then links the Riverstormer into Goliath, and then he uses his Trencher to bring back Harvester. He then links those into Ballista to add Box and Tunneler. He then summons Fortress by pitching the Tunneler and the Box, I believe. And then he uses Tunneler and Grave, and at this point, he's pretty much just assembling game here. He summons out Bullet. I use my Knuckle, but it doesn't matter here. He has game either way. And as I'm recording this, I'm still unsure as to how I lost this game, but I believe it's ultimately because I overextended, and I didn't really leave myself with much of a follow-up, unfortunately. So we head into round 4 with a 2-1 record. So round 4 rolls around, and I play against a very familiar opponent, so I knew exactly what I was going to be playing against as we headed into this match. Luckily for me, I do win the die roll. We started with Machina Metal Cruncher, and I reveal Bullet, Heavy Freight Train, Derrick Crane, and Machina Fortress. I believe I get a Bullet to my hand, and then I resolve Dozer to summon out Trencher, and then I go for Riverstormer, activating its effect to search Derrick Crane. I then link Stormer into Goliath, and my opponent has a Phantasme. Now here I did have 2 copies of Ash in my hand, and for some reason I totally blanked out here, and the fact that I could have ashed his Phantasme just flew right over my head, and I completely regret not doing so. And to be fair, this was the last round of the night, and I was a little tired, so I mean, I see why I possibly made that mistake, but I still cannot believe I actually made it. Regardless, our combo fully resolves, and we end on Knuckle, number 81, and 1 set back row. My opponent starts with Chaos Mage, which I decide to ash, and the only reason I did ash it was because I heard a friend of mine who actually plays Dragon Link that said, if they start with Chaos Space, sometimes means that they might have a bad or weak hand. So I decided to take a risk here, since I had already made 1 mistake, test my luck, and unfortunately, luck was not on my side. My opponent eventually establishes a Savage Dragon, and then proceeds to continue through his combo. Now, once I see him establish Guard Dragon LP, I decide to fire off my number 81 in hopes of using Derek Crane to destroy his LP, and maybe he wouldn't negate it with Savage Dragon, and to my surprise, he actually let it go through. But his hand was so good at this point that it didn't really matter. He was able to continue comboing, and once he activates Boot Sector Launch, I try to activate my set Twin Twister, discarding a Tunneler to try to hit Boot Sector Launch and his equipped Striker Dragon, which he then does negate with Savage. Fast forward a little bit to where he has Borrelsaur Dragon and Phantasme, Red Eyes Darkness Metal Dragon, and Savage Dragon. Tries to go for the OTK, but falls just 800 life points short. In my end phase, I add back Cruncher, feeling like I've been given a second chance. I start by normal summoning the Cruncher to reveal Citadel, Trencher, and Ancient Gearbox, and then activate Trencher in hand by attributing off the Cruncher, linking that for Goliath, sending Goliath for Stormer, and then Goliath, of course, reattaches to the Stormer. I activate Stormer to add Box. Box adds Drill. I then pitch the Drill, and one of the card I believe that was maybe a Dozer for Fortress, and then use Trencher Engrave to revive Drill to summon out Box, then go for Dingirsu. Now, looking back here, I believe I made a mistake regarding as to what position I summoned the Ding in. I definitely should have put it in defense and not attack position, especially since I had so little life points, and I definitely wasn't going to OTK at this point. Now, another potential play that I could have done here was by using Drill to target Fortress to go for a rank 11 and go for Juggernaut Lead, but with his Borrelsaur still on field, there was no way I was going to get any damage in. And in hindsight, my Ding should have sent his Savage Dragon and not his Borrelsaur Dragon for a reason we'll get to in just a moment. I then slap Gaia Dragon on top of my Stormer, go into the battle phase to pierce his Phantasme, and I can't do much after that for the rest of the turn. Because my monsters are at 26 and his are at 28. So I just summon Zeus over top of Gaia Dragon and send off Fortress to bring back Knuckle. And going back to what I said, why I should have sent off Savage Dragon is because he eventually puts Rocket Synchron onto the field to make Hot Red, which basically, you know, in short, shuts down my entire board. And we just go ahead and scoop it up and head into Game 2. Now, in Game 2, I actually ended up opening my best friend, Ancient Gearbox, which led me down the path of the Gearbox combo, which fully resolved here, but my opponent did have another Phantasme. Now, my Tunneler ended up drawing me into a redeployment, and I also had a Citadel in hand as well. Here I was sort of at a bit of a critical juncture because when I revived Drill off of Trencher, I was, debating as to whether or not I should summon the Citadel out of my hand off the Drill to get it on the field immediately, or if I should have held the Citadel to pitch off of my redeployment and grab, per se, a Fortress and a Cruncher, or a Cruncher and an Overdrive. But I think looking back, ultimately, it probably wouldn't have made too much of a difference to my overall end board, which wasn't that great to begin with. So I had to pass with just having Knuckle and one set on board. Now, my opponent was just so cracked that he happened to have a copy of Pankratops as well, which made my end board even worse than it already was. So to save a little time here, basically it all comes down to the fact that after I had used Knuckle to revive Bullet, I tried to use Citadel targeting my Bullet, and my opponent chained Pankratops in response, and I was really hoping he'd hit the Citadel, but he hit the target for Citadel, making it so it would not resolve. Because there is no attack stat on the field for Citadel to go off of on resolution. So after that, he just basically goes for game, and he takes the match 2-0, and unfortunately, that puts a wrap on locals. All right, well, we're leaving locals now, and it's very unfortunate. I can't believe I had to play my friend round 3 in the mirror. So that was just upsetting, because I don't like having to play my friends in tournaments, because it means one of us is going to do worse, and the mirror match I am very inexperienced in. And then round 4, I definitely played, I think, the worst that I've played in quite a while, especially against the Dragon Link deck, which I feel like I know, what to do against in most situations. Game 2, I just did not have a very good hand at all. Did not draw into anything good. That sucks. But yeah, obviously we did not go 4-0. Finished X2, which is extremely unfortunate. Very frustrating, because obviously I only have myself to blame at the end of the day. But huge shout outs to my friend Adam. He went 4-0 with his Earth Machine deck. So yeah, huge shout outs to him. But yeah, let's go home let's go over everything that happened, and then we're gonna put the Earth Machine deck in this series to rest for the time being. Of course, I'm still gonna come back and play it next week though, just because I love the deck. I still love it. Alright, so let's go ahead and wrap this episode up. I got food upstairs and I'm very, very hungry. But yeah, it's unfortunate that we did go X2. It's extremely disappointing. I'll probably put up after the fact, what our total record was over these 4 weeks, what we won and lost against afterwards, just so you guys can get the total breakdown. That'll be interesting for me to see, too, what we lost to the most, what our match win-loss was, and our game win-loss as well. But yeah, nothing but sheer disappointment for tonight. I still think it's very funny that the whole time I've been filming this, didn't get a 4-0, and the week prior to me literally starting One Deck 1 Month with this deck, I went 4-0. But of course the cameras weren't rolling for that, no. But yeah, just to recap, round 1, the non-fusion area came in clutch. Did not need Ice Dragon's Prison or drop it to out the Dragoon. That was not a big issue like I thought it was going to be. Round 2, very, very unfortunate for my opponent. Scooped up very quickly because I'm sure he knew what was coming and I had all the right interruptions at the right time. And round 3, the mirror match. Again, I lack experience there, and game 3, the game definitely slipped out of my favor very, very quickly. I opened up absolutely the stones, and I'm still kind of at a loss for how I did not win that game. I mean, Citadel is a hell of a card. What can I say? It really is. Paired with Fortress, too. It's a hell of a card. And, yeah, I don't know. Maybe there was something... I may have already talked about it in the match segment. But sitting here fresh after locals, immediately, I don't know if there's anything I could have done differently to not have lost that game. Because it slipped out of my control very, very fast. And then the most disappointing thing that happened, as I'm sure I've already talked about it, is I still don't know why I didn't Ash the Phantasme. I had double Ash in my hand. I just wasn't thinking. This is what it comes down to. I just wasn't thinking like I had anything in my hand that could stop the card that he had, although I had Ash. It's like the same reason a few weeks ago when I had my opponent play a call by on me on a bullet and I had a bell in hand, and I just said, oh, well, I don't have anything for the call by. It just completely slipped my mind. It goes right over. I don't know what it is. It's just sheer lack of sentient thought, I guess. I don't know. And then game 2, it was just very unfortunate. I did not draw into any hand traps, any traps, any side deck cards. Didn't see any in the opening hand. Did not see any off my tunneler draws. And interesting thing, too, is that the combo that I did where I brought back the drill, I remember specifically thinking, like, oh, do I want to use this effect? And I looked at my head, I'm like, oh, I have the Citadel, could bring that out, and, possibly get that on the board early. But then I also had a redeployment in hand, and I realized as soon as after I summoned off of drill, I could have pitched the Citadel off of the redeployment to grab a Overdrive and a Fortress. But then at the end of the day, my only interruption, regardless, still becomes a Citadel, which I believe he still had the negate for at the end of the day. But I probably definitely should have made that play regardless, because who knows, it might have put me in a better off position. So I think I would like to say I royally punted the 4th and final round, but hey, this is the Winter Kills channel. What else can you really come to expect at this point? Nah, I'm joking. It's really easy to get discouraged after a poor tournament performance, whether it's locals or an online tournament or YCS or whatever. It's very easy to get discouraged. I myself do it all the time. I shouldn't. I should keep my head up and stay positive and look forward. But you can't help it sometimes. You just get in that headspace, and especially if a loss comes very early on in a tournament, it's very easy to let that loss just live rent free in your head. The rest, and it just messes with you, and you do very poorly because of that. So I try not to get angry until the whole thing is done. But it is what it is. I enjoyed Earth Machines. I enjoyed it, especially covering it in this specific series. I'm glad you guys like the deck so much. Huge shout-outs again to Aerosol TCG and everybody that's shown the deck so much love in the community. Yishan, shout-outs to him too. Shout-outs to everybody that's played Earth Machine. Cali Effect, I know he's been playing the deck and having a lot of success with it too, so congrats to him. Shout-outs to you for playing the Earth Machine deck. It's so good. I'm glad it's getting the love that it deserves. Like I said, I'll probably still be playing Earth Machine at locals from time to time. And there's going to be a little bit of a gap between this series of One Deck One Month and the next one, which, by the way, the deck we're playing is Photon Galaxy. Ordered our Pot of Prosperities the other day, and we'll have them in time to start up our first episode with Photon Galaxy. So it's been a long time coming for Photon. Meant to do that deck back in January for the series, but my locals, of course, was canceled. So Photon Galaxy is next. Like I said, it's probably going to be maybe 1 or 2 week sort of grace period where there won't be any One Deck One Month, just to give me a little break. But yeah, that's going to do it for this episode. I hope you guys enjoyed. Leave a like if you did. Share this video with a friend. Leave a comment, all that stuff. Subscribe. It helps out a ton, seriously. We just broke 20,000 subscribers again, as I've already said earlier in this video, I think, and thank you guys so much for that. Giveaways coming very, very soon. And yeah, as always, Winner Kill signing out. We'll see you guys in the next one. And of course, a huge shout out goes to all of the channel members supporting this channel, and a special thanks to our Divine level channel members, and they are Zors and Chatelax84. Thank you guys for going above and beyond in terms of supporting the channel. I really do appreciate it, and it helps out way more than you think. So thank you guys again for your generous support.